Hey everyone, how's it going? Thanks so much for tuning in. Today, the 62 GMC starts to go back together for the final time. As I mentioned in the last episode, getting to this point took way longer than expected because the bodywork end of things was far more time consuming than originally thought. This truck had some serious issues that were masked by an older respray. Pretty much the entire cab and front end of the truck had to be taken down to bare metal so all of the dents and rust could be properly fixed. That being said, my friend Joe and I, with the help of our friend Andy, are finally at the point of prepping for paint. While we won't have the entire truck painted in this video, you all will at least be able to get an idea of the custom two-tone color theme we're going with. It's going to be awesome. After the cab gets jammed out, so to speak, it's going back on the freshly rebuilt frame. If you missed the last episode, be sure to check it out. The link can be found in the description box below. I walk you all through the entire process of rebuilding the frame from the ground up. Before we get started, I'd like to extend a huge thanks to GM Genuine Parts and AC Delco for sponsoring this build. I've successfully taken 3 old GM trucks that were destined for the scrap heap and combined them to create a proper Restomod using mostly factory-backed parts. In addition to having the body of the 62 GMC C1000, the frame is from a 74 Chevy C10 and the powertrain and Hydro Boost system I'm using is from an 04 Cadillac Escalade. The main reason behind building the truck the way I have is not simply the fact that I love the concept behind restomodding a classic vehicle, but I wanted to build it to where it's easy to live with. Plus, by doing the vast majority of the fabrication work myself, I was able to significantly cut down the costs of building this truck. By using as many factory-backed parts as possible, this truck will be the best of both worlds. It'll have the classic looks inside and out, but also the reliability and improved drivability of a late model truck. As far as serviceability is concerned, you'll be able to go to any GM Genuine Parts or AC Delco distributor to easily get parts, or even take it to a GM dealership to have work done on it. Because at the end of the day, we're not dealing with 1962 underpinnings anymore. It's a combination of square body GM truck and LS parts, which are plentiful to say the least. This has been an incredibly fun and rewarding journey so far. It has not been without its difficulties being such a fabrication-intensive project, but I've learned a lot and I'm so thankful for it. I can see the light at the end of the tunnel, but there's still more work to do as I move towards the finishing stages of this build. So if you haven't subscribed already, definitely do so and make sure those notifications are turned on. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. The first step in the path we're taking is prepping the cab with all new seam sealer and some final coats of primer. We're going to tackle the firewall first. The firewall and all of the engine bay panels are going to be finished in a satin black just for an added touch of cleanliness, plus it's going to really make the motor pop. For those who may have missed the episode, Joe spent a ton of time on the firewall to give it a smooth look while still keeping it looking somewhat factory. All of the dimples and waves in the original stampings were worked out with a hammer and dolly, and all of the unnecessary holes were filled. The area where the Hydro Boost system installs was also finessed to better blend in with the 62's original stampings. The firewall recess was also brought out about 3 inches for a more visually appealing look with the new engine. These cabs were also shared with Chevrolet C10s at the time, which offered inline 6-cylinder engines. The firewall recesses were set really far back to account for the length of those engines. With the newer V8, the gap was excessive to say the least, so a new firewall piece was made to close the gap. Doing that also allowed for some additional interior room underneath the dash. Everything turned out amazing. The majority of the body is going to be finished in GM's Son of a Gun Gray Metallic. It's a beautiful, deep, dark gray that seems to have a little blue in it in certain light. The paint code is G7Q. Joe's wrapping up seam sealer on the doors, and once that's dry, it'll be time for some final coats of primer, and then we'll start seeing some color on this thing. In one of the previous episodes, I went pretty heavily into some of the issues we found once we started tearing into the cab, such as hidden rot that we didn't expect to find. At this point, most of the cab's lower portions are new, including some of the floor pan. There were also a lot of dents on the cab's back wall that someone had previously filled in. Of course, all of that was properly worked out. The roof of the truck and the majority of the interior is going to be finished in GM's Silver Ice Metallic, which I think will offer a really nice contrast against the Son of a Gun Gray Metallic. The paint code is 636R. The two-tone process involves taping off using a special nylon fine line tape so the lines are kept nice and crisp. It's also a lot easier to work with when it comes to sharp edges and is safer to use on fresh paint versus only using painter's tape. Once the silver is sprayed, the tape will then be removed and both the silver and gray will be clear coated at the same time. Being that most factory paint nowadays is water-based and we're not equipped to spray it, we had to go through an outside source to have the GM paint colors mixed. That being said, if you do have a little mishap or some paint chips that you want to fix yourself, AC Delco does offer a whole line of aerosol touch-up paint cans and 4-in-1 touch-up paint pens that'll certainly come in handy. You can visit gmparts.com, input your vehicle, and see all of the colors and options for yourself, including where to purchase. With the cab and doors jammed out, all that's left is jamming out the hood, fenders, and grille shroud. The plan is to get the cab bolted back on the frame, hang the doors, and get the front clip reinstalled so everything can be painted at the same time, ensuring we don't have any tone differences being that we're dealing with metallic paint. With the frame in place beneath the cab, we're about ready to get it all bolted back together, but to ensure cleanliness and prevent the possibility of overspray when painting the body, we'll be covering the frame in plastic and then setting the body down. That way, the plastic can be taped to the floor and act like a giant tarp that'll protect everything underneath. After the paintwork is finished, the plastic can be easily ripped out. It's a really nice and simple way to keep things clean. During this whole process, I kind of forgotten about one final piece of fabrication that I still needed to do involving the Hydro Boost system. Because of the shape of the Hydro Boost system, the lines, and where it all mounts in the firewall, it interferes with the 62's inner fender, so I have to modify it accordingly to accommodate everything. On top of that, I'm actually going to be using the Escalade's power steering lines, slightly modified of course to work with the 74 C10's steering gearbox. I'll show you all how all of that came out in an upcoming episode. Well everyone, that's going to wrap it up for this video. I hope you all enjoyed. Please don't forget to leave a like down below because it really helps the videos a lot. I know progress on this build has been kind of slow. There's so many things going on in the background. I'm working towards finishing this and a bunch of the other builds and trying to just get things back to a much more manageable state. Hopefully in the near future, but everything is coming out great. Definitely don't want to rush this process because, you know, we're at the time right now where if, you know, you cut corners or rush or whatever, it's going to show up in the final product. And I want this thing to be as nice as possible because I've put so much work into it. I'm really, really proud of this truck. But I just wanted to thank you all for your patience and support with this build and everything else that I have going on, including the car reviews. I also want to give a big thanks once again to GM Genuine Parts and AC Delco for sponsoring this build. Check out gmparts.com to input your vehicle and check out all of the parts and paint options they have for it. If you haven't subscribed already, consider doing that too. And again, make sure those notifications are turned on because of course, there's a whole lot more content to come, not just with the GMC build as things are getting wrapped up, but all of the other cool content that I have on the channel. I'll see you guys on the next one. Take care.